You are listening to the podcast for learning the language of A Course in Miracles so you can understand the meaning, embody the message, and live the teachings as a way of life. Welcome to episode 33 of this podcast. I am your host, Reverend Jennifer McSween, creator of this podcast, and the Course in Miracles practice coach for taking those who are studying the course from information to application. The topic of this week's episode is You are entitled to miracles, not a perfect, pain-free life. Understanding this one idea is critical to help you understand or reconcile the Course's idea of the world as an illusion with the sickness, loss, pain, and even death that are very real experiences for us in terms of what we experience in our lives and in the world. So let's take a look at what this idea really means. Now, first of all, this idea is divided into two parts. The first part is the title of Workbook Lesson 77, which literally states you are entitled to miracles. Now, entitled by definition is to be given a legal right or a just claim to receive or do something. It also means to be inherently deserving of something without having to do anything for it or to earn it in some way. For example, you'd hear certain people described as entitled, thinking they're deserving of privileges or special treatment simply because they're here. Well, we are entitled to miracles in the same way. And as stated in Workbook Lesson 77, and the part one of this idea, the reason why we are entitled to miracles is because the miracle within the context of A Course in Miracles is not something external that happens to us or that is given to us by God, like what we would call or refer to as God's grace or blessings, such as the healing of our body, or perhaps that of a loved one, or maybe in the form of changes for the better in our finances or our relationships, employment, or even experiencing a deeper connection to God for that matter. That's not what the miracle is. And usually this form of a miracle, we think that we need to ask for or gain through prayer, praying to God, because again, we believe this is something that comes to us from God, and however, it's not that. A miracle is the Course's name for the dynamic that allows us to understand that everything we see and experience personally, collectively, and in and as the world is a dream. This is a dynamic in which we all have the ability to engage in, because it comes about simply by choosing another way of looking at the world, as I talked about in last week's episode. And this other way of looking at the world that allows you to see it as a dream, at its core, is the process of forgiveness, which, by the way, is the means to miracles within the context of the Course, or as the Course teaches. Because forgiveness, you see, is recognizing that all forms are illusory in nature. And when I say all forms, I mean all forms in the world, beginning with your body and the other bodies and every other form or body object that you see around you. They're all illusory in nature. They have no power, or they aren't able to have any cause and effect relationship in terms of what you feel. So it's not what does or doesn't happen in our life or in the world, but the perspective from which you look at it that determines the way you feel about everything that shows up in and as your life and in the world. So how we are to understand what the idea that we're entitled to miracles, not a perfect pain-free life, is, and how it will help us to relate to the idea of the world as an illusion while having very real experiences to the contrary is by remembering the Course's most fundamental premise, which is that everything happens in the mind, and we experience it in different external forms. So the sickness, loss, pain, and even death we experience in our lives and in the world is nothing but our experiencing the ego's thought system of separation in different forms. This is very similar to what takes place in our nighttime dreams, which is why the Course refers to the world as an illusion or as a dream. Keep in mind, we will always experience the content of the mind in its true nature in the different forms that appear to be external to us. Now, this means that we cannot not experience sickness, loss, pain, or death in some form if we entertain the ego's thought system of separation. And the point is not to never entertain the ego's thought system or any negative thoughts for that matter. Because not only is this impossible, but you will wear yourself out trying. If you've ever even tried to think positive for any extended period of time, like, I don't know, maybe more than 5 minutes, you know how exhausting this can be. And I'm only partially joking here, right? So how you look at, how you deal with or respond to the very real experience of sickness and loss or pain in some form in your life, and when you find yourself feeling fearful, victimized, or unfairly treated because of the presence of this sickness or pain or what have you, and all you want to do is feel safe, peaceful, you want to have some sort of healing, which can be equated to wanting to experience a miracle, is to first remind yourself of the Course's teaching. That's the first part of this idea. That is, you're entitled to miracles. Next, remember that the Course's definition of a miracle is not the absence of, nor a change in circumstances or conditions, but a change in your perception, the way you're looking at the circumstance or condition and what you're telling yourself about it. Realize that you do not have to feel fearful, victimized, or unfairly treated because your body or that of a loved one may be sick, or that you may have experienced a loss, or there is some painful experience that you've had. And that if you are feeling victimized or unfairly treated by it, it's because of one reason only. You're looking at yourself, the circumstance, the condition, the experience, and the world for that matter, from the perception of the ego's thought system or through the lens of the ego that says the separation is real and you can be victimized by what you experience. Now, remembering you're entitled to miracles means that you have the inherent right to change your perception, which by definition is the miracle. And this is experienced by entertaining the Holy Spirit's thought system, which will shift your previously fearful, painful, troubling perception of sickness, loss, or pain as what is really happening to you, and showing you upon your experience that this you shouldn't fear, feel victimized by it, or feel that it shouldn't be. This is what is meant by the idea that you're entitled to miracles and not a perfect pain-free life. It means that you will have painful, victimizing, and even oppressing experiences in different forms in your life. You cannot not experience them. But what you can do, what you are entitled to do, and what you have the inherent right to do by virtue of who or what you are, what you really are, is to change your perception of the circumstances, conditions, and the words, behavior, or actions of other people as being capable of causing you pain. Because though sickness may be present, certain losses or painful situations, circumstances, or conditions may very well be taking place in your life. Or you may have had certain extremely painful, or what we would refer to as deeply troubling or negative experiences. None of it is happening to you. All that is ever taking place is that you're experiencing the idea that's in your mind in different forms. The real you remains forever safe and unaffected by external events or occurrences. Now, with this awareness, you will be able to experience peace, safety, and healing as you go about your life in the world, regardless of the circumstances or conditions that are present, that appear threatening, and that may show up in your body, the body of your loved ones, or in other areas of your life or theirs. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the podcast for Understanding the Language of A Course in Miracles. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, please hop on over to iTunes and leave me a review so that others can hear about it, enjoy it, and find it helpful also. And if you have not yet done so, please do subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Have a great week and see you on the podcast next Wednesday.